Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Jesper, and welcome. I know it's a difficult choice, actually. There's so many incredible tracks going on. So we appreciate you coming in here and listening to what I promise is going to be a really interesting debate, because it's all about immersive versus intrusive. Now, this is a debate that rages on. If you think about it in terms of our industry, whether you're in advertising, branded content, marketing, whatever it is, it's about that push-pull of how far we push creative. When does it become an irritation? When does it become impactful? I think it's a really interesting conversation, and one I wanted, and I'm very lucky that I've got Matt, Jess, and Ian to unpack this, because it is about that delicate balance. But think of it also like this. You know, for publishers and editors, it's all about, you've got to balance that revenue. And I think Jesper showed a slide first up this morning. You know, content studios, their number one priority is growing revenue. So you do need to push. You do need to think about ways that you can do that. But when does it harm the consumer experience? But we're going to do a lively debate. I am going to possibly throw a question at the audience. They don't know it, but there's a quick fire round coming up. So I promise it's going to be a fast-paced session that we're going to hit you through with. So welcome, Matt, Jess, and Ian. We're so pleased to have you here. Now, challenge number one. I want you to introduce yourself, your name, your company, and then you've got to give me a one-word answer, immersive or intrusive, or another word. What word best describes most digital advertising today? Matt, you're next to me. You go first.
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Butts, and I look after marketing science at Samsung Ads EMEA. And the word that I'm going to use is not immersive or intrusive. I'm actually going to use competitive.
Oh, interesting.
Controversial.
Yeah. Jess, to you next.
Hi, I'm Jess Aylett. I'm the head of sales at Gum Gum. The word I'm going to use is intrusive.
Oh, so you're going on that one. Ian, which one are you going to go?
So hi, I'm Ian. I'm from CNN Create, CNN's brand studio. I'm going to go with indifferent.
I love that.
This just sets the tone, doesn't it? They're not going to play by the rules. I think as well, do take note of the fact that the three panelists are coming at this from a different side and perspective. So we hope that helps whatever side you're on as well. But I want to start with, and I'm going to actually, for a rarity for me as a moderator, come to all three of you on this. Where exactly is the line today between immersive and intrusive? Because you've all said a different word to start. So I'll start with you, Ian. Where's that line today?
The line is when it sort of ruins a user experience. When we're talking about advertising, it's in places where people don't necessarily want it. You're on a news website, you're on a platform looking to get content you want. Advertising is there, it's a necessity, but it has to fit in with the grand scheme of things. If it goes beyond that and gets in your way, it is very much intrusive. I
think that's a fair point. Jess, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the line isn't necessarily just when it comes down to the format or the creative itself. It's the relevance of the environment it's in. And I think that's where that line is currently quite blurred.
Yeah. We did say, this whole thing was a fine line, Matt. Are we stretching it to the point of breaking point?
I think it varies, but I definitely agree with Jessica and Ian here, is that it's really about making sure. So I think immersive creatives really land best when they're delivered almost organically and within the natural user experience. It doesn't disrupt it, it doesn't make it feel inorganic, and it doesn't kind of create extra steps for the viewer or the customer to kind of go through their journey. So that's where the line is. Once it starts to deviate from that, it starts bordering on intrusive.
Definitely. Well, that's an interesting point. So Matt, you said when it's done well. So can you, and I can come to any of the other panelists as well, think of a campaign when it's been done well, when it's got it spot on, and why did it work so well, Matt?
Yes, so I've got a good example, so I'm gonna put my consumer hat on, and it's gonna be a little bit self-serving, but it really worked really well. So at Samsung Ads, we introduced a new ad format called Game Breaks, and we did a partnership with Domino's to introduce that format to the UK. And it was a really great way to bring a bit of pizzazz, if you will, to traditional ad breaks. So this creative or this format would actually deliver within the typical ad break that you would see on our FAST service, or our free ad-supported streaming service called Samsung TV Plus. So it almost replaced the traditional ad break and gamified the experience, and we would serve either a quiz or some trivia-style questions related to the advertiser brand, and it was very organic to the experience. All you had to do was use your remote to go up or down, answer the question, and then the advertiser's creative would show right after it. So we were essentially turning a lean back experience for traditional ad breaks and turned it into more of a lean forward one, where we turned viewers essentially into players. And the results from that were actually very strong. So because we replaced that ad experience with game breaks, the traditional kind of commercial break experience, we saw that top of mind awareness as well as consideration saw over 30% increase as a result of it. And when we surveyed the consumers, we saw that over 90% of people actually preferred seeing game breaks over the traditional ad experience. So it was just a great way of kind of finding a new way to put a spin on the traditional ad break while still kind of creating relevancy and not just inundating the user with 4, 5, 6, 7 ads and just having a really strong immersive experience.
I think that's really important. And what I'd like to make note to the audience as well is any of the examples that are given today, it's worth going and exploring them and looking at what they did and taking note of the success of that, because it's easier to learn by example. Because I've got one actually, but Ian, do you have one that you think that?
I'm intrigued as to what yours is actually. If I'm perfectly
I'm
honest.
going to absolutely butcher this. Michael Ceravi.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Michael Ceravi. I had a little look up and I was looking, what is the best what's being acknowledged by Grok as the #1 immersive campaign?
Controversial,
came up
using
with
Grok.
that. I know it is. Just let it do my thinking. And it won a Cannes Grand Prix last year. And I think they just got it right, because what it did, it was a mixture of content, branded content, video, storytelling, immersive. You felt part of it. And like you were saying, Matt, your games breaks was successful because it was gamification and it brings the user in to experience something. And Michael Ceravi's one brought you along for the journey. So that would be mine. Ian?
I think mine is probably, it's a little bit of a slightly left field one, but Spotify Wrapped for me. It's one where you are you are using your own data, you're actively consenting to use it and then actively sharing it in public and saying, look at me. I think that's a fantastic example where it's incredibly immersive. It can't be any more. It's entirely personalised to you.
Having said that, it's always a bit embarrassing. I remember our team
people love that though, don't they?
Our team shared ours and I was a bit horrified that Dolly Parton was my favourite. I think
Mine would be nursery rhymes. So.
Ian, I'm just curious to know, we talk about this, and the whole point of this is to go fine line, where is it? At what point does strong creative start harming the overall customer experience? Because you said there, actually, weirdly, for Spotify Wrap, the consumers are happy to give their data. At what point do we harm?
I think it's when it gets in the way. It goes back to the point I made earlier. Like, advertising is there as a necessary evil. It's there to fund what people want. So you have to take people on a journey, and advertising and creative has to add value to that. If you're asking something from them, or if it's irrelevant, that's the point. That's kind of a line where it becomes intrusive. So from a creative standpoint, you want to be taking people on a journey, and you want to be adding value to their lives. It needs to be sort of going.
I was going to say the Spotify example is a really good one, because actually that's earned attention, so that's when it works. If it's forced, that consumers are more tolerant than I think we give them credit for. If it's the right creative in the right moment and they're in the right mindset, they are receptive to it. If it feels clunky, it feels irrelevant, that's when there's that sort of it doesn't work, it jars. And the Spotify one's a nice example, because actually, it's not forced, it's earned attention, and actually it's their choice whether they then want to be embarrassed on socials or not.
I might come back to you on the contextual one, but I love the fact that we've gone, it's storytelling, it's earned, it's gamification. Matt, anything else that is a red flag of when it could start harming?
Yes, so coming at it from a platform perspective, a CTV standpoint, trying to drive memorability at all costs till it turns into fatigue for the consumer or for the consumer, right? So what you don't want to do is bombard them with a message so much that they actually start to see ad decay. You start to see a bit of fatigue. So what's important, and going back to the data part, is actually having controls in place where you can give advertisers really a holistic view of behavior that's happening across environments so that you can actually manage that frequency and you can kind of give them that holistic view so that you can actually have those controls in place. So that's something that we have at Samsung with our glass level view of kind of what's happening across the screens within the CTV landscape. So whether people are looking at linear television or streaming television or they're really they're gaming, anything that they're doing with their connected devices, being able to manage frequency and how the ads are kind of delivered across all those environments are super important because then you can manage that and kind of manage frequency so that you don't burden customers with your message to a point where they kind of start to lean back and pull away.
I would go so further than that as well and say there does get to a point where you get a negative impression of the brand and you actively get annoyed by
irritated,
it. My YouTube pre-roll is there's a lot of places that a lot of project management software I'm not going to be buying because they just keep
there you go.
I think that's so true. I think you've got make sure you're limiting respectful of frequency. But here's a question for you, Jess, because we just touched on contextual. So do consumers actually want bold, cinematic, full screen, interactive ad campaigns, branded content, or do they only tolerate it when the frequency is right and when the context is right?
They do want it. I think actually if it's done well, people are tolerant, they're receptive, they enjoy it, they lean in, they're more engaged. I think, gamification is a great example. Yeah, people, they do want to be entertained and actually engaged and interact. I think the main thing is it needs to be relevant contextually, or when they're in the right mindset to actually get that leaned in nature to it, or that receptiveness. If you don't do it in the right way and it feels jarring, as I say, or it's not contextually relevant, it doesn't really matter what the creative solution is. It could be small, big, OLVs, it doesn't matter. It's the connection between the creative and the contextual relevance that actually builds a great synergy between the two. Otherwise, it won't work for anyone.
It feels almost like there's lots of pieces of the pie that have to come together to make it work. But Ian, I've got a question. I'm going to ask Ian a question, then I'm going to ask you lovely people in the audience, a question. Are brands and agencies and content studios self-censoring creativity because of maybe backlash or because they're nervous about getting it wrong if they don't feel confident in those pieces of the pie?
I think broadly, as a broad brushstroke, yes, absolutely, they are self-censoring. But I think it happens at various points down the chain. You mentioned agencies, brands, and brand studios there. I would hope the brand studio's role is to push back on some of that. They're there to push the creative. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of brands, a lot of agencies, certainly in the world, in the sort of types of clients I work with, absolutely are self-censoring. But that is by design. That's how the machine has made it. We've spent years trying to be liked by everyone and building success metrics around that, building sort of relevance, ad recall, all of that around being liked. And that's the problem. It's all about being liked.
We're so needy.
Needy, but people aren't feeling anything from it. And the outcome is not just sort of poor, it's just grey slop creative the majority of the time that comes out. And I think that is due to a fear of sort of being cancelled.
Well, let's ask the audience this, because I'm interested. If you can raise your hand, if you've killed a creative idea for, I suppose, fear of both feeling it's intrusive or fear of being cancelled, let's use that. Raise your hand if that's ever happened. And we've got, so there is hands going up, and I think there's quite a few coming up there. I think that's one of the things. It's we are nervous, we are worried, but ultimately, if you then look at those we've started naming times when it does work, and hopefully the takeaways from today is not what does work, but the elements that will work to mitigate that. So I think that was good. Thank you very much, audience. I'm going to come to you, Jess, on this one. Does a strong contextual relevance gives brands license to push creative boundaries even further and further? And is there an example you can?
Yeah, it definitely does, but I don't think it gives a free pass. I think there still needs to be a level of respect for the consumer, but it comes back to that idea of receptivity again. Like if you're reading something, if I'm reading something about Wimbledon, I'm more receptive to a tennis-related message. Like that's just sort of, I guess, it's innate in us. It feels less pushy. It feels less like we're more receptive. We want to see it. It's more native. It feels better for us. Yeah, it feels organic. And I think you can sort of then start to push creative and be more impactful and make it more powerful that way. If it's in the right environments, because people, like they're more leaned in, they want to see it, they enjoy it more. But yeah, I don't think it's a complete free pass. I think, you've still got to respect the boundaries.
So staying with you, so would you say that, for those, if so bold, supersized or highly immersive formats can be deployed in highly contextual environments, if that's the case, then why do we often see homepage takeovers where I don't think there's a lot of context? And what do you think?
It's an interesting one, and I think it comes down to this idea of there's different types of attention. And sometimes actually a homepage takeover works because of the impactful nature of it, and it doesn't necessarily need to be contextually environment. They're primed for that message anyway. I often use the example of the Super Bowl. It doesn't really matter what, not that I'm American, obviously, but it's a great example. Yeah, I'm doing this for you. It's a great example because actually it doesn't necessarily matter what advert you put in that break. Everyone's going to watch it. So actually it doesn't need to be contextually relevant. Everyone's excited to know who's first in break, who's last in break because of what the content is around it, not necessarily the synergy between both. But if you're looking to do something more targeted, more strategic, you do need to be contextually relevant because you're going after a specific audience. It's not just about your reach and relevancy.
I would also just say to that, Jess, that's a good point because I also feel like the Super Bowl example is more of the exception than the rule.
Correct.
So to your point, it's more about, that's more of a fringe case, but we really need to consider all of those elements and, the contextual environment and kind of catching people where they're most receptive and where it isn't going to cause a little bit of repulsion. That's the key.
It is this. I keep feeling like we're all doing this, aren't we? In it. So we've got Ian and Kurt. You obviously at CNN Studio. There's a lot for people here that are also in branded content studios. What do you think is the proper role of immersive advertising in branded content? You're the oracle.
I'm going to push back on you there again. You've used the word proper. I don't think there is a proper role. That defines there.
That's me told.
Defines it. It makes it seem kind of binary. I think it's an interesting one. That for me, the story should always lead. And if the sort of format serves the story, that's when it's great. That's when it works. If the format is the story, that's kind of really when it falls apart. And so I guess when I started out as a journalist many moons ago, my editor said to me, report the news, don't be the news. So don't make it about you. What I tell my team now is be the news. You have to create something for people to focus on. That is the story. That is the thing that will hook people in. That's what will make it immersive. And then you've got to tell it in different mediums through different formats to get people involved.
Because people are very visual beings, and probably even more so. We're bite-sized chunk, we're visual, we're audio, so it's marrying those two. And never more so, actually, I suppose, within CTV, where I feel, Matt, that we can push the boundaries. Do you agree, immersive?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there's probably a handful of things that come to mind for me when I think about it for CTV specifically. And the first thing is actually to not overthink it, right? So within CTV specifically, you have the home screen, right? So that's the first thing you see when you turn on your television, right? And you have this canvas where you can hit people with messaging where they're in their most receptive mind state. And that's where that immersion really comes in without kind of hindering the user experience, right? It doesn't impede you from navigating to your content. It doesn't impede the user journey, but you still have this strong share of mind, if you will, up front, right? So that's the whole part of not overthinking it. But the other thing is that our internal data shows that people return to the home screen on average of 5 times per day. So again, that it's natively and organically immersive, just the home screen alone within the Samsung environment. But we also have other formats as well. So the home screen itself doesn't have to be this boring, standard kind of display unit that sits on the home screen that feels clunky. We have things like the immersive carousel, the immersive masthead, where it navigates and expands and contracts as you use your remote control to navigate to your content. And we also have the immersive carousel, which rotates creatives, right? So all of this happens within the natural rhythms of how you're using your television set to navigate to your content, right? So that's thing one.
Are advertisers exploiting that? I'm intrigued. So if you've got this data, are you making that public? Are people knowing that in the morning people are more receptive to X versus in the evening more receptive to Y, and you're seeing creative formats and stories change within the units because of that?
Absolutely, and we actually have AI technology internally that actually help us deliver that creative in the right moment.
It's similar to, we talk about mindset all the time. It's exactly the same thing when we talk about it from like a format perspective. It shifts throughout the day, and that's what we use to do our strategies. I think it's important that you use that when you're talking about it with consumers and their brands.
Absolutely, and you think about the CTV landscape, like we know when people are watching, what they're watching, how long they're watching. And now it kind of sounds a little intrusive, but that's the nature of it, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think there's no harm in admitting that and accepting it. It's very clever what we do. You had to go and mention AI, because we were going to get for a panel. So you all mentioned AI in a different way there, and curious then as to how AI is changing the balance, changing that fine line. I might have to come on to AI slop in a minute, but for you, AI, where's it changing the balance? Jess, do you want to go first? Because mindset.
AI is a bedrock of our business. It always has been. I think it's definitely changing it. It's making us more efficient. I don't think it's necessarily changing our strategic the way we work, but it's helped in terms of the actual strategies, the creatives we use, the contextual relevancy in terms of you still need that human layer of understanding and actually. That's what makes us as powerful as we can be. But I think the AI element to our business, like I say, it's always been there, but it's getting more refined, it's making us more efficient, it's letting us understand more data quicker to then actually be more accurate with who we're targeting and why we're targeting them, with which creative, in which context.
And it's interesting, also, Jesper, you talked this morning about the native branded content report and those agencies that are leaning into, those content studios, that are leaning into AI have a 1.7% improvement in terms of their revenue. So, Ian, AI, how's it changing the balance?
Yeah, I mean, we are taking a deliberately measured and sort of cautious and sensible approach to it. Our content sits on the main site. We hold truth and journalism above everything else. We are deliberately not using AI in certain ways because we hold our content to our branded content to the same high level that we hold our journalism, and the whole point is real people going to places doing real things written by humans for humans. That said, AI is helping us in assistive ways, particularly across our entire edit suite, from color grading, all sorts there, where it's not altering the story, but it's allowing our humans in the loop to be superhumans and do more and create more. And I think ultimately that's where, sort of, as you mentioned, the sort of drive for profit, for revenue, that's where that's coming, is allowing people to do more, but it's not impacting the story. It's not taking away from the story. It's ultimately a human story and a human connection.
It needs to be human-led,
I think so. But then, Matt, I'm going to come to you because I think it's what humans do that the AI is using to inform the data to enable the CTV experience.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, we have a ton of signals that we're using, and I think one thing that kind of flies under the radar that you wouldn't even equate with the data signals that we use that informs our AI approach is we actually have a ton of mobile data, right? You think about Samsung phones, and how does that actually translate into the user experience on the large screen? And because we have those signals and we know, we have an idea of the engagement that happens on your mobile device, we can actually use those signals to actually tailor your big screen experience based off of your mobile device usage and also create a very tailored and relevant experience. So that's just one of the signals that we use, but we use that to continually optimize the way that we deliver impressions so that we minimize friction, but then also maximize conversion as well for advertisers.
I think it's very good. I think the one thing we all need to just avoid is stopping the AI slop and stopping, because if you think about it, if every content studio, every agency, every marketer used AI to do the generated campaign creative, surely we'd all be looking at something very similar. And that's when immersive and innovative, it just won't exist anymore. And it'd be not just intrusive, but shit. What do you Just as before I move to quickfire round, any thoughts on that? How we stop the AI slop.
We're not going to stop it.
No.
Fundamentally, we're not going to stop it. That's I mean, hopefully everyone here in publishing, in brand studios, we know better, we do better, we create better. And actually, that's our superpower within this, is there will be so much AI slop out there that the stories we tell, hopefully, will rise above, will put more meaning behind what we're doing and more... ultimately more dollars in our pockets.
But then do more people try and be, look, I promise this isn't being using AI. I'm going to go really immersive and use real humans. I mean, how far do we start to go the other way?
Well, I think that's when it becomes interesting. Because there will be brands that will refuse to use it or will use it in a really clever way or align it more with their contextual strategies, and it will feel less like slop and more immersive and more intelligent. But there'll be I think it'll be interesting to see how it actually goes, and I think it depends on each brand with how they lean in or lean out of AI.
Indeed.
Do you think the same, Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just from a creative standpoint, even though I'm on the platform side and it's more about how the ad is delivered, we don't have as much control over the stylistic elements of a creative. One thing we can do is that we can actually leverage testing, right? Do A/B testing. We can create mutually exclusive groups so we can test various creatives to actually understand the outcomes that are associated with the use of each of those creatives, so we can actually understand the downstream impact as well. So while you can't impact things upstream or further upstream in terms of how the creative is developed, you can understand the impact so that you can validate if the approach made sense from the jump. So I think from a measurement and marketing science standpoint, there's always ways where you can take some calculated risks, but then we can test and validate to see if that actually is landing the way we intended.
Let's hope, actually, we'll do that. Show me the data and show that AI slop doesn't work. I've got a couple minutes. I've got to do this to them because it's fun for me and for you. Quick fire round. Right, here we go. You've got to answer the question in the first thing that comes to your mind. We've got 6 short fire, quick fire rounds, and then we're done. Matt, fill in the blank. The moment an ad feels intrusive is when it
feels inorganic to the user experience.
That's good. That was quick. Okay, all right. I'll make it a bit harder. Ian, yes or no? Would you rather have a campaign that's loved by 60% and hated by 40%, or respected by 95% but remembered by almost no one?
Oh, loved and hated. Make people feel something. Sod respect.
Perfect. Okay, Jess, context or creativity, which one matters more when pushing boundaries?
Creative is what wins you the attention, but the context is what matters.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I thought you
liked it at the beginning, but did you like it at the end?
I did, yeah.
I thought you were going to go contextual, go, but actually didn't. Ian, I'll come to you. Name rapid fire. Name one ad format that should be banned immediately.
Non-skippable pre-roll.
Oh, yes.
Fuck yes to that. Sorry for swearing, but I actually do agree with that. Matt, AI in one sentence. Will AI make advertising more immersive or more intrusive?
It will make advertising more immersive because there are better signals to actually increase the quality of that data used.
Okay, perfect. Jess, take us home. Bold prediction. In 2026, will consumers be more tolerant or less tolerant of immersive advertising?
I think they'll be more tolerant if they are relevant.
Perfect. They've done well. And on that bombshell, I do think this, be bold, be mindful, but obviously be brave and still continue to try and be as creative as you can and immersive and impactful and make a difference. So I'd like to thank Ian and Jess and Matt. They've been incredible. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.